Today we are going to spend a lot of money.
Hey, stop. What do you mean we're going to spend a lot of money? You're not my father. This is low-cost sailor. Seb, what are you talking about spending?
So that's it. Today, after 30 years and the last 3 years without taking the boat out of the water where we really saved money, we are going to see the results. And we are also going to look at the task that will ensure our boat survives another 30 years without sinking. We will review how the silicone patent has worked, how to change the stuffing box, the thru-hulls, and all those underwater parts that can compromise the safety of our boat ourselves. Things that seem very scary, but we are going to see how simple and safe it can be. Doing it yourself.
But how much are we saving? I have the sign here. I need to put something on the sign.
For now, about 800 euros for the 3 years that I haven't had to take the boat out of the water. But I'm telling you, it's going to be much more. Greetings sailors, and welcome to a new episode of The Low Cost Sailor. In today's episode we take the boat out of the water after 3 years without doing so. We will see the result of the silicone coating after all this time, how it has performed and what we need to do to renew it. But above all, we will look at some of the tasks that are worth doing when we have the boat out of the water. Fundamental tasks for reviewing and changing Thru-Hulls and Seacocks, the shaft packing gland, another important one, source of failures and possible water ingress, the depth sounder or the bushings of the rudder shaft or the propeller.
3 years without taking it out, lazy.
3 years and 2 or 3 months.
Since we took it out in the channel?
Since I got the beating of a lifetime that time. And what is the lifespan of these items? When should we replace them? All of these are greatly forgotten items that we sometimes believe are eternal, but they can surprise us with a breakage and a sinking ship. And all this thanks to SVB, which with its more than 30,000 nautical articles has absolutely everything you might need for the maintenance of your boat, wherever you do it, because SVB ships its items to any port in the world. Let's see how simple it can be to carry out these tasks, which always command a bit of respect as they are in submerged areas, but are fundamental for the health of our boat for many more years.
Yeah, at least another third.
At least they are the ones who will be with me until I die. I won't switch ships even if I'm drunk. Boats need to be taken out of the water periodically for maintenance. And although there are things we could do without taking them out, for example in my case changing the depth sounder, there are others that are important to do with the boat out of the water. Because on a ship there are many elements that are permanently submerged and exposed to the effects of the sea and marine life. Starting with the hull itself, which marine creatures see as a floating island where they can settle and grow, forming incrustations that affect both the integrity of the hull and its resistance to movement. But the main problem is that most of our ships are full of holes below the waterline. Holes that have their utility for engine cooling, for evacuating water, to have a depth sounder, or simply so that the engine is inside the ship and the propeller is outside under the water. All these holes are sealed with thru-hulls, seacocks, stuffing boxes and other components that ensure their proper functioning, but they require periodic maintenance. And to perform these tasks, most people usually take the boat out of the water once a year. Well, once a year, of course, if you can afford it, because taking the boat out of the water is one of the most expensive tasks, and we depend on the facilities, a port, the crane, and the time spent dry. And all this costs quite a bit. Expect that between 300 and 400 no one will take it off your hands. And for me, it's not a pleasant moment. I don't like having the boat out of the water, it's not a natural environment at all. And beyond not being able to use it and the money, I simply don't like seeing it there. The poor thing out of its element, and even more so when as soon as you take it out you have to go to work in New York for a week and leave it there abandoned to the elements, even though I'm watching it all day remotely with the cameras and my controls on the Raspberry Pi.
Well, this has nothing to do with the script, but you, just to show off that I'm going there, I'm going to work in New York, I'm an important guy.
No, it's just that I recorded there and then we'll have to add some images. Maybe that's why I extend the time between dockings as much as I can. Specifically, on this occasion, it has been 3 years and 3 months since the last time when I went through the effort of a lifetime to renew the entire patent and switch to the Silic One silicone system from Hempel. Certainly, let's evaluate the results. The day came, the Marina del Cantabrico port told me I had a slot to take the boat out. It was on a Thursday at 6 p.m. And there I was, ready for the operation. I had to make a few maneuvers in the hallway until I managed to line up the ship with the crate and the crane to take it out. It was the first time I took the boat out of the water since I applied the silicone coating, and of course all the stories about the strap slipping on the silicone and the boat falling to the ground were swirling in my mind. It's not too complicated. First, place the straps in the right spot. Boats have a designated point specified by the shipyard for placing them correctly, and you should know and mark it clearly as I do. And then, as a precaution, connect the straps to each other to completely eliminate the possibility of them slipping and separating. By taking these precautions, you're sure not to have any problems. And that's how I did it myself. 3 years and 2 months without leaving the water, during which in the last 6 months I hadn't done any cleaning by diving, and it's not like I had sailed much either. Despite that, the boat came out quite clean. It had some incrustations, but no hanging algae, which would be expected after so much time. And after using the Karcher, the truth is it looked pretty good. I think I could have even put it back in the water directly, but there are a lot of tasks to do.
I was genuinely astonished at just how exceptionally clean it appeared. Additionally, the travel lift operators were quite pleased because they barely had to do much of anything at all.
Yes, since all the dirt came off easily. I've already told you that a boat has a lot of holes below the waterline with multiple uses, and they are a risk to be taken care of and kept in good condition. In boats equipped with inboard motors and propellers, the shaft traverses through the hull via an opening referred to as a stuffing box.
Like the one from Trastornillo.
Your father reminds me that the horn still isn't honking. To ensure that no water enters and that the shaft can rotate freely without leaks, there are different sealing systems. From the original stuffing boxes, very common on older ships, which work by compressing packing against the shaft to maintain some level of tightness, although they are never 100% watertight, to the modern rubber dry tube systems, which work very well and achieve almost perfect water tightness with freedom of rotation. My boat had one of these dry seals at least since I bought it, and since I didn't know how long it had been installed, even though it was still working perfectly, it was time to replace it as a precaution. Manufacturers usually give them a lifespan of 500 engine hours. Mine had quite a few more, so I went to SVB to look for a replacement. It was easy to find a match. In my case, it is water-cooled, but the cooling is connected to the shaft, so the rubber part does not require direct cooling. In the SVB catalog you have all you can imagine, and before taking the boat out I had placed a big order with everything I might need for the hull fittings, depth sounder, Seacocks, everything. These specifically are not exactly cheap, but they will easily last more than 10 years as in my case, and replacing it can even be done with the boat in the water, but it is much simpler and safer to do it with the boat out of the water. You need to loosen the motor plate shaft. For this, you might have to use quite a bit of leverage because the screws are usually very tight. Once loosened, we move the shaft back a bit, which gives us access to loosen the mounting screws of the old gland and remove it from the top of the shaft. If you want to take advantage of the opportunity, it might be a good time to also change the bearing of the shaft bracket, is the piece on which the shaft rests and rotates. In my case it was very cheap, made of rubber, and of course it was available at SVB. To remove the shaft you also have to remove the rudder blade, and that's where things get a bit complicated. This is where having help comes in handy, and if your friend happens to be a boat maintenance specialist like Felipe from Puente Mar Barcos or comes with Jose, his mechanic, then all the better. With their assistance, I successfully removed the rudder blade, which also exhibited some play in the rudder tube bushing, and they personally took charge of crafting a custom bushing. The procedure was essentially to detach the blade, extract the shaft, substitute the rubber bushing of the strut, eliminate the old and dry gland, reinsert the shaft, and with the shaft securely in position, install the new gland. This is simple and comes with detailed instructions on how to do it. The first step is to apply a bit of grease, which usually comes included with the gland on the lips of the gland, as this is the most delicate part and ensures the seal. Then we put on the protector that comes with it to prevent the lips from getting damaged when inserting the shaft. It should be placed wide open in its position so that the shaft passes through without any issues. We carefully insert the speaker through the shaft, but we do not secure it in place just yet. Initially the shaft must be reattached to the motor plate. This step is performed first to ensure that the shaft is properly aligned, and then we proceed to move the speaker to its final designated position and place the clamp along with the protective plate. The clamp should be tightened completely to the very end, ensuring both screws are fully secured. Finally, we cautiously remove the protector and verify that everything rotates smoothly and without any issues, adding a little more grease to the mouth of the horn. And that's it! Just remember that when you put the boat in the water, you must immediately purge the horn. Press the edge until all the air comes out and a little water starts to enter. This ensures it cools properly and does not get damaged, and it will last us many years. With the gland and the shaft in place, we can now put the rudder blade back on. For me, with the new custom bushing, the improvement's been huge. It used to have a lot of play, now it fits perfectly. Plus, the savings are significant. The original bushing was over 1,000 euros, but a Turner-made one is under 200. The benefit is that the original doesn't consider the wear on the blade and housing that might have happened over time. And the Turner measures it for you there and makes it to size. When the time comes to put the shovel back in place, you can also do it yourself, just with help, as it's always more appreciated. And you won't strain yourselves like I did. I have already told you that ships are usually full of holes below the waterline, mainly to take in seawater, for example for cooling, or to discharge grey or black water into the sea. We have the one for the toilet, the engine intake, the stuffing box cooling, the sinks, the toilet, the Seacocks, the saltwater faucets. And what guarantees that the vessel remains afloat despite those apertures are the thru-hulls, components that conform to the boat's hull and enable faucets and pipes to be securely connected to them. 7 years back I replaced the toilet one because during an inspection it broke and ended up in my hand. Luckily this occurred with the boat out of water, which is exactly when you should inspect these parts and apply some stress to ensure they're in good shape. Because I can tell you that over the years, the galvanic currents, acids and liquids that pass through them deteriorate and become fragile to the point of breaking dramatically. What materials are available for Seacocks and thru-hulls? There are many options, the most economical being brass, but it is also the least durable. Stainless steel is very fashionable, but it is not the best option if it is continuously submerged because stainless steel needs to be in contact with oxygen. Then there's bronze, which has been used on ships for decades and offers great durability, although it is among the most expensive. And finally, plastics and composite materials do not rust, do not suffer from galvanic current, so although they are somewhat less resistant, they can last longer than metal ones. And if you have any doubts, consider that almost all of us have a plastic thru-hull fitting in our boats for years now, like the one for the depth sounder. That said, I have chosen high quality bronze for both the thru-hull fitting and the Seacock because I want them to last another 30 years. Replacing them is quite simple. First, remove the old thru-hull fitting. You can do this by unscrewing the fittings, removing the nut and carefully detaching everything, but you'll soon see that taking it out in one piece is very complicated. Good cuts with the fresh wheel speed up the process a lot, and then with pliers you'll remove it very easily. However, you'll probably realize, as I did, that you should have changed it much sooner because it breaks too easily. Do not perform these tests with the boat in the water. It's time to install the new thru-hull fitting. Once the old one is removed, we clean the hole thoroughly, remove all traces of old silicone, and do a dry test with the new thru-hull fitting and the Seacock already mounted. And we turn it until the faucet is in a comfortable position. With a permanent marker, we mark the exact position on the outside to ensure everything is well oriented when assembling it, because if not, if we set it up carelessly, then when we install the faucet, the handle might end up in a position where we can't open it correctly. Then we dismantle everything and begin the installation process. We apply a generous amount of Sika 291 or similar, as we have already discussed in another video about the types of Sikaflex, both on the thru-hull fitting and on the first turns of the thread. The idea is to fill the entire gap well with sealant. Here, I do recommend having a friend's help, although I have assembled some on my own, many with Carlos. In fact, you saved the boat.
It's true. I realized there was one that was wrong. I saved your life, kid.
Well, Carlos, besides his attention, lent me his hands holding the thru-hull fitting from the outside and preventing it from turning while I tighten the nut. For that, it usually has some notches inside where you can insert a lever. There is a specific tool, but we solved it with...
Not sure. You handed me an iron piece.
With one of these metal pieces. With the thru-hull fitting in place, we add a bit more Sika on the inside before tightening to ensure the nut is also well secured. We fully tighten the nut and verify that the surplus sealant has emerged on the exterior and that the cable gland is entirely flush against the hull. This is important because the water tightness is ensured from the outside in and not the other way around. And that's it. Let it dry and we have the thru-hull fitting in place. But of course, a thru-hull fitting is just another threaded hole. To make it useful, you need to add a Seacock. Here comes one of the great discoveries that I was taught from Puente Mar, liquid Teflon. It is used both to seal threads and to prevent them from turning. It is very easy to use and completely replaces traditional Teflon. We apply the product to the first turn or the first 2 turns of the male thread. We also apply a little to the female thread. We press them against each other. You will see how the excess is expelled and everything is perfectly sealed. It needs to dry for about 6 hours, and for the bond to be permanent it should be left for about 24 hours. It's amazing. The days of wrapping Teflon and having to redo it because you run short are over. It's foolproof. Since we previously marked the position of the through-hull fitting, the Seacocks should be in the correct position. Now all that is left is to connect the pipes and repeat this entire procedure for each of the faucets you are planning to replace. In my situation, both of them.
Your boat doesn't have that many bathrooms, Joe.
No, 8 Seacocks. It seems like there were 2. Indeed 8. Therefore, when the moment arrives to launch the boat, ensure that the crane does not release it entirely without conducting a swift inspection beforehand. Verify that no seacock is leaking, and that will suffice. You'll go through what I did. You'll have 1,000 doubts about whether it will work, whether it will be that simple. But it works, and it is simple. And the boat floats, or so I hope, when we put it in the water. Taking advantage of having the boat currently out of the water, I wanted to address an outstanding obligation I had with it and upgrade the depth sounder. The primary reason is that it was the sole data I didn't possess in my system with the Raspberry Pi because the sounder I had was quite outdated. This time I bought a top-of-the-line Airmar from SVB with direct NMEA 2000 connection to easily integrate it into my Raspberry. Moreover, this sensor is truly amazing because it combines the transducer, depth, speed and water temperature all in one unit. Now I'm going to know how warm the water is before jumping into swim. And not only that, but it also includes Bluetooth and an inclinometer that measures both the heel and the trim of the boat. Let's go. It's wonderful. I don't usually spend much, but depth is something I've always wanted to have well integrated with Navionics. 400 euros. And I had resolved that for 30 in another one of my videos, but honestly I am not sure I wanted to purchase something really nice like for an anniversary. Speaking of anniversaries, my wife is calling. I'll hang up.
Have you hung it up? Have you hung it up again?
How do you install the depth sounder? Well, just like any other through-hull fitting. In fact, I could have left the old plastic through-hull fitting and just changed the sounder because they are exactly the same size. I even tried doing it in the water and had no problem. There's no need to be scared. It's quite common to remove the depth sounder with the boat in the water to clean it without getting wet, for example. And it's no problem. The probe comes with a closing cap precisely to allow you to make these kinds of changes easily. However, this has been the hardest through-hull fitting to remove of all. In the end, I had to grind it down to show you the resistance that composite plastics have after years submerged. The plastic one was much more difficult than all the metal ones combined. Otherwise, the installation was exactly the same as with the bronze Thru-Hulls, with a small difference. In this case, it has a rubber sealing gasket on the top, and the manufacturer indicates that it should be tightened by hand. Very easy as well, without complications. Not a drop of water gets in, or at least I hope so. And finally, before going back in the water, the usual thing to do is to renew the coating. In my case, as you know, I use a silicone coating, and there are 2 ways to renew it depending on its condition. If the silicone coating exhibits scratches or minor dents, all that is necessary is to clean it meticulously with water and soap and then apply a fresh layer of Silic One using a roller. With that, you can even cover areas where it has chipped less than a centimeter without any problems. And it's an economical solution with 2 750 milliliter cans of Silic One, which cost less than 120 euros at SVB. You have it ready for years. You can be like this for another 3 years. However, if you have changed the through-hulls like I did, you will probably want to paint them as well. In that case, you need to do the full treatment, as we saw in the video. Epoxy primer on the bare metal, several layers. While it's still tacky, apply the tight coat, and after 8 hours without getting it wet, apply silicone over the tight coat. What I did was take advantage and do it all at once. I painted the new through-hulls, the propeller, and also repaired the damaged areas of the hull. In my case, the hull hadn't been out of the water for 3 years, and I admit I went a bit overboard with the cleaning. The first year the grime would fall off on its own. The second year I had to use a plastic scrubber because there were some stains that remained dark even with the sponge. And the third, well, there were already areas that needed a lot of scrubbing, and of course if you scratch, more things stick. My advice if you use silicone is that you should clean it exclusively with a soft sponge about once a month while diving, and that the boat moves frequently. If every time you take the boat out you apply a new layer, when you have about 10 layers, it's time to strip it completely and start over. But if you take the boat out every year, Hempel has another solution called Infinity. It's like a magical ointment that is applied over the clean silicone. Let it sit for 24 hours and then rinse with water. What it does is hydrate the silicone you had and restore its water repellent effect for another year. It lasts perfectly for another season without adding layers, and it's a simple and very quick way to do it. However, it is even a bit more expensive as a bottle costs about 200 euros. But on the other hand, it's very easy to apply, nothing gets damaged, and there's no need to tape or prepare anything special to apply it. I've tried both options and I'm very happy with them. Now the question, what do you think I'm going to do next time? Take it out every year or leave it for another 3?
The question, no, that's not something to ask. It's a rhetorical question, because knowing you, now you'll go 5 years without taking it out.
Now that I know it's better just sponge, I think I can manage to keep it in the water for 5 years. Taking the boat out of the water is an activity that isn't particularly enjoyable, and confronting tasks such as changing the thru-hulls is always quite daunting. However, it shouldn't be intimidating. It should be more frightening not to replace them. The problem is that you have them for years and years and don't know how they are, and they're there all the time. For now, I've changed mine. It's been 4 days and not a drop of water has come in, but not a single drop of water has entered yet through those thru-hulls.
Sure, but because look where we still are.
Well, that works in my favor. Honestly, I'm really eager to get the boat in the water. I hope it still doesn't let a single drop of water in. But what do you want me to say? Last time I changed one, the biggest one, I was very scared too, and it was easy, nothing happened, everything worked the first time. It's more complicated, like a pipe or something like that, and that's what the Seacocks are for, to close and be able to open things and change them in time and without problems. Having thru-hulls, Seacocks in good condition, and stuffing boxes are very important, and in the end they are materials you can acquire, which are not too expensive and can be easily purchased. That's what SVB is for. I'm still looking for a challenge to try not to find something in the SVB catalog, like something I say, darn, I need this, go to the SVB catalog and it's not there. Well, no, I can't find it. I can't get it. Thank you very much, SVB, for helping us as always, and thank you very much for your attention, sailors. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, please give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell to receive all notifications. You have all the links in the video description as well as on our website www.thelowcostsailor.com. We cannot stop being grateful not only to SVB but also to all our Patreons who continue to support us day after day so that we can keep making this channel. In any case, we'll see each other in a couple of weeks in a new episode of The Low Cost Sailor.
With the boat in the water this time, I hope.
Yes, I hope that by the time you are watching this video, the boat is in the water and on top of the water, not underneath.
Floating, floating.
That is the goal. That is the goal.